and building a fantastic marriage. Before I get into tonight's material, just like to tell everyone out there, the audience, if you have any questions on dating or Shalom Bayit, feel free to WhatsApp me or call me anywhere in the world. It's fine. Using WhatsApp, it's, thank God, not that expensive. 305-206-1916 is my phone number. Again, 305-206-1916. I saw an amazing story recently that I'd like to start tonight's lecture with, because when I saw this in a leading magazine, first of all, I saw it, I recognized who it happened to, because it was at a time in my life when I lived in Miami Beach. I lived there for about 7 years, and it was one of the mitpalelim, one of the people who prayed in the shul that it took place to. But it was recently published in Mishpacha magazine, and I thought that it would be fantastic chizuk to tell over this story, especially when I am in a position to listen to people all day long talk to me about their dating successes and their dating woes, and they sometimes lose heart and sometimes can give up. And this story is an amazing lesson of how never to give up. I was born in Cuba to a traditional Sephardic family. One of the first things my father did when he moved from Cuba to Miami was enroll his children in Jewish schools and ensure that we would have a Jewish education, something he himself had never had. Having grown up in a culturally Jewish family and having attended Jewish schools, I viewed keeping Judaism as somewhat optional. At the time I got married at the age of 28, I was working half a day on Shabbat and keeping kosher only at home. But the rabbi who acted as my Mesader Kedushin, who married me, impressed upon me the importance of living a fully committed Jewish life. And from the time I got married, I resolved to observe all of halakha, which we just spoke about before, about keeping halakha, how important keeping halakha is. Right? As a matter of fact, today, I was saying to someone, I had someone call me today who's about 54. My client is a 49-year-old woman, modern, but she's observant and she speaks Hebrew fluently. She's dating someone who, call him a Baal Tshuva, who doesn't know a whole lot. And she's concerned that she can't live a halachic life. So when he called me, I said to him, she's very interested in you, but you have to show that you have a desire to grow. If you don't have a desire to grow and to understand how to keep Judaism, you can't build much of a Jewish home. So it's important that we undertake in our lives the effort that we should make to learn halakha. I had always been very athletic, playing Little League baseball from the time I was a young kid, and moving on to football, weight training and long distance running in my teenage years. In my 20s, when I was still single, I began participating in elite level triathlon competitions, which included swimming, bicycling, and running. In bicycling, I was ranked a world-class cyclist. This is in Miami. And I know this man, he was an absolute sweetheart, this guy. But a lot of this he never told me until I read this week. After becoming fully religious at the time of my marriage, I stopped training as a high-level athlete. Instead, I became serious about Torah learning. Each morning after davening in the Netz Minyan, I would learn the weekly parasha with Rashi with a chavrusa, a learning partner, for a couple of hours, and then head off to the business that I co-owned with my father, in which we made men's casual wear. Every evening I attended a shiur given by the rabbi of my shul. I still went out biking and running on occasion, but at this point it was more as a hobby and as a form of exercise to help me stay in shape. After about a decade of working in my business, I landed a great job as a sales manager for a company that represented Procter & Gamble, the large consumer division. After working there for a few years, I moved over to the competition representing Unilever, which is another company that makes all the same type of household products. In the meantime, my wife and I had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. My life at the time was hunky-dory. Everything was going wonderful. I had a beautiful family, I was earning plenty of money, and I was growing spiritually, spending a good part of my day davening and learning. But then, when I was in my late 30s, my business dealings soured through no fault of my own, and I found myself struggling to support my family. Now herein begins the tests of life. By this time, I had become the Shabbos and Yom Tov Gabbai of my shul's Netz Minyan, and I would come to shul early every morning to learn as early as 4 o'clock. With my business floundering, I would take advantage of the empty shul to stand before the Aron HaKodesh and pray to God in my own words. As I begged Hashem to give me parnasah, I could practically sense the presence of the angels surrounding me. Several months after my business started to go downhill, on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, which is my birthday, a wealthy businessman who prays in my shul came up to me and said, everything is going to be fine for you. We'll talk after Yom Tov. Sure enough, after Rosh Hashanah, he offered me a job working as the administrator and maintenance supervisor of a chain of nursing homes owned by a group he belonged to. This job paid well, but it also required me to work very hard. Besides my administrative duties, I had to do spot checks on the various facilities in the middle of the night. I remember who he worked for because he drove a brand new Bentley. I was also the supervisor of maintenance for several buildings. I was working far more hours than before, and my learning and my family time diminished, gone. No more time to learn. Very little time for my wife. My wife was not happy about this, and she often tried to get me to adjust my hours so that I'd have more time for Torah learning and for the family. But I told her it's impossible. That's all part of my job. In the beginning, I would try to learn late in the evening after I came home from work, which was around 10 o'clock. As time went on, however, I couldn't muster the energy to sit in front of the sefer at that hour. I was too exhausted. Nor could I drag myself out of bed in the pre-dawn hours to learn before the next minyan. Eventually, I stopped going to shul altogether because I was too tired to get up to go to shul, and I couldn't get to work on time if I davened in a later minyan. My Torah learning dwindled to nothing. When my rabbi saw that I was dropping out of the shul scene, he came over to me to ask, "What's going on?" "I have a lot of work, Rabbi," I told him. "You can't be working that much," he said. "It's not the same kind of work as I was doing before, Rabbi. I have to put in a lot more hours, and the work really tires me out." I said to myself, I'm not doing anything really wrong. I'm just working so I can provide for my family. Other rabbis I was close to called to check in on me, but mostly I ignored their calls. I felt bad myself about my spiritual deterioration. I was even embarrassed to talk to anybody about it. Around this time, a friend of mine who knew me from back in my days as an athlete remarked to me that I might be a good candidate to compete in the World Masters bicycling event, which is an Olympic-style competition for cyclists over age 40. I remember seeing him train on the Rickenbacker Causeway, which is a magnificent bridge that takes you into Key Biscayne in Miami Beach. I hadn't competed in cycling or triathlon competitions in over 10 years, but my conversation with my friend got my interest. I decided to start training seriously again and see whether I could regain the skills necessary to compete in a cycling event, which was like an Olympic level, and perhaps make it to the finals. I kept my bike and my cycling gear in my car, and whenever I had a pocket of time during the day, I would go out on the road and train. When I was 42, after about 2 years of training, my speed and my endurance were about where they had been 2 decades earlier. He was able to train to get to the level where he was 20 years before, when I was a world-class cyclist and triathlete. My dream of reaching the Masters circuit was becoming a reality. But in order to make that happen, I had to get really serious about training. The qualifier events for the Masters team were just a couple of months away. Here's the test. The one day of the week that I was off from work was Shabbos. I had been fully Shomer Shabbos from the time of my marriage. But with the qualifiers looming, I couldn't let a day go by without training. What was the big deal anyway? My bike wasn't powered by electricity. I wasn't carrying anything. Watch how we rationalize now to allow things. There are people who rollerblade to shul, I said to myself, and I'm not really breaking any halacha. When I was about a month shy of my 43rd birthday, I did something I'd never done since I got married. I took my bike out on Shabbos. The date was August 19th, 2006. It was a bright, sunny summer day. I rode down the highway, Florida highway, favored by long-haul trucks for its spacious lanes and by cyclists like myself for its wide shoulders. This way, it has wide shoulders, you don't have to worry about anybody hitting you. While riding between Broward County, which is Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach, which is Palm Beach County, near the Everglades, I rounded a curve in the road. The next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital. My wife, parents, and sisters were in the room. I saw the helmet. It was crushed to a sardine can. "Where are my legs?" I asked. I couldn't feel them at all. Look, my sister pointed, lifting the street, your legs are still there. I discovered then that 2 months had passed since that fateful Shabbos when I went cycling on Highway US 27. Apparently, I'd been hit by a truck that was traveling 90 miles an hour. Yeah. I had been airlifted unconscious to Jackson Memorial Hospital. The lower part of my spinal cord had been crushed like a pancake, the doctor later told me. My lungs had collapsed, my kidneys had stopped functioning, and had lost a huge amount of blood. I remember when they wheeled me in with a wheelchair. When I arrived at the hospital, no one thought I would survive. Practically every night for those first 2 months, the doctors told my wife, he's not going to make it till the morning. Not happening. They also warned my wife that even if I did live, my cognition and speech would be impaired. I wouldn't have any memory. I would suffer complete memory loss. I for sure would never walk again. They were right on only one of those counts. When I finally regained consciousness, the lower half of my body was completely paralyzed, but my mind was completely fine, and I was able to speak normally. I had also regained lung and kidney function despite being hooked up to a respirator and a dialysis machine for weeks. Several months after the accident, a top neurosurgeon who had operated on me when I was hovering between life and death told me that in all these years of practice, he had never seen a spinal cord injury as devastating as mine, totally crushed. Moshe, I can't believe you're alive and talking, he exclaimed. Doctor, I said, you forgot there's a God. I, for one, had no questions or complaints to God. Amazing. I had strayed, and God had brought me back in line in dramatic fashion. What an incredible concession. Knowing that I had brought this catastrophe upon myself, I apologized to my wife and parents for putting them through such a nightmare. When they reassured me that it wasn't my fault, I said it is my fault. I insisted. I shouldn't have been training, much less riding on Shabbos. I said, well, it will never happen again. My wife was afraid I wouldn't be able to cope with my newfound paralysis, especially since I had been so physically active. He was built like a monster, I can tell you now. During one of the first series talks we had after the accident, it was actually in the garden of the hospital, she leaned toward me in my wheelchair and said, listen, Moshe, we're going to get through this. We're going to be just fine. His wife was an absolute angel. It's Tzaddiket bar none. Yeah, I said, I know we are. Many people who suffer paralyzing injuries become depressed, trapped in their own bodies. But I never fell into depression, not right away. And not in the 12 years since the accident. Right from the beginning, my attitude was, okay, I've moved into the next stage of my life. Now time to go forward. How critical a lesson we need to think about it for those of us in the dating parsha. Time to go forward. And go forward I did. Even though I wasn't going anywhere. As I had to be on bed rest for an entire year, wearing a plastic apparatus on my upper body to stabilize my back. After all, no more spinal cord. Only when that apparatus was removed was I able to begin serious physical therapy. Then there was the question of liability and compensation. The accident had occurred on a bright, clear day on a wide open highway, and in order for the truck driver to veer out of his lane and hit me, he had to be distracted. Maybe he was texting. Yet he was not prosecuted, even slapped with a ticket. We hired a lawyer to sue the trucking company, but the company was a small operation, and the maximum their insurance would pay was a very low sum, considering that I was paralyzed and unemployed for life. After using the money from the insurance settlement to pay my hospital deductibles, we had enough left to buy a house, and that's all. At the time, my 3 children were 9, 8, and 6 years old, respectively, with many years of tuition ahead of them. Since then, we've been living off my wife's salary as a teacher's aide. Yeah, she was an assistant teacher in the yeshiva, which we sent all our children to. A small disability stipend from the government, and support from the Miami community, which has been incredibly kind and generous. My family, too, has been exceptionally supportive. During my hospital stay, a male nurse named Robert told me, Mr. Behar, you are so blessed. Yes, I am, I agreed. You don't understand, he said. When people come in here in the hospital with injuries like yours, The spouse, the husband or the wife usually disappears after a week and never come back. Goodbye. But your family keeps coming back to see you. You're a very lucky man. Look how lucky we are as Jews. What marriage means to us. What relationships, what responsibility, what commitment. By them, no, goodbye. Someone gets into an accident, they don't know for them a week later. They don't even come back to visit. Believe me, I said to him, I know that. What I have, even billionaires can't buy. Here's another lesson in Hakarat HaTov, Hakaras HaTov to Hashem, to all of us for all that we have, and never to take light of what we have. I started to appreciate a lot of the things after my accident. My family, the Jewish community, my life, my connection to Hashem, my love and ability to study Torah. Before the accident, I had had all the excuses in the world for neglecting my spiritual life. Excuses that, in hindsight, seem pathetic. Since the accident, I have plenty of good excuses. I'm paralyzed from the waist down. I can't go to the bathroom without help. I require an aide every morning to help me get dressed, shower, and use the bathroom. So when I tell people, and I often tell people, when you come out of the bathroom and say Asher Yatzar, you should have all the kavanah in the world in thanking Hashem that everything works. You have no idea what a blessing you have. In addition, I suffer from chronic neuropathic pain, which is at times often excruciating. But I'm not interested in making excuses. I try to wheel myself to shul every day in my wheelchair to daven with a minyan, and I spend hours learning Torah. Since the accident, I have focused specifically on studying the laws of Shabbos in depth as part of my tshuva process. The more I learn, the more I realize how easy it is to desecrate Shabbos. One step out of the Eruv with something in your pocket, one pot placed over a fire incorrectly, one unwanted item selected from a mixture, which is, choosing, borer, and you've transgressed. I considered myself fully Shomer Shabbos before I made the decision to ride a bicycle on Shabbos, but how many halachic details was I unaware of or not even caring about? Today, I'm a lot more careful. Several years ago, 2 girls on a Shabbaton retreat near Orlando went missing after going for a walk in a wooded area. And a group of volunteers from the Miami Jewish community gathered at 3 a.m. to travel to Orlando and search for them. You may recall, I was one of those volunteers. When the driver of the van, who was a good friend of mine, saw me in my wheelchair, he looked at me uncomfortable and said, Moshe, I can't take you. I'm not equipped to take you the way you are. I know, I said. I don't expect you to put me in the van, but I have to do what I can, which is to come out until this point. Now I'll go back home, but you should know that I'll be with the rest of you in spirit. Thank God the 2 girls were found in the end. Baruch Hashem. Most people who meet me would never know I'm in constant pain. I always keep a smile on my face, no matter what. And I try to have a good word for everyone I talk to. No excuses. On the Shabbos of Parshas Re'eh, which is the anniversary of my accident, I usually speak in shul at Charles Shuras about Moshe Rabbeinu's message to the Jewish nation. If you obey God's commandments, you will be blessed. Not everyone gets to see an open manifestation of this the way I did. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have Hashem stop them swiftly and decisively from falling spiritually. Before the accident, my job had kept me too busy to learn, too busy to pray, but I had somehow found the time to train as a bicyclist, something that was totally inappropriate for a committed Jew like me. Even if competitive cycling didn't involve any kind of sins, it was incompatible with a spiritually centered lifestyle and incongruous with the true priorities in my life, which should have been Torah, mitzvahs, and family. My decision to go out riding on Shabbos was just one more bad decision in a chain of poor choices that began when I put my livelihood ahead of my spiritual obligations. Despite my bad choices, Hashem has been extremely kind to me. Not only did He prod me back on the correct path, He surrounded me with a loving family, caring friends, and a devoted community. He preserved the function of my upper body, which means that I can still use my hands, push my own wheelchair, and even drive a car. I can also use a computer, which has been invaluable for my Torah learning. Today I'm going back into business with my friend, leveraging my experience in marketing and sales to promote an innovative Israeli manufactured cleaning product. Thank God we started making some sales, and we're doing our part in praying that Hashem grants us success. I also dream of writing a book and doing public speaking. Despite my limitations, I haven't lost my motivation to provide for my family, nor have I ever despaired of healing from my injury. Even though my pain has become worse over the years, I have faith in Hashem that tomorrow will be better and that the future will be great. In the past, I dreamed of joining the Master's Circuit. Today, I'm proud to be part of the true Master's Circuit. So many wonderful lessons from this story about going on, about not giving up, about being committed to Torah, about growing, about seeing only the good from what seemingly looks like a terrible event and spinning it on its head. I always tell everyone, make sure you have a session of Hakaras HaTov every day to Hashem. Just 3 minutes. And I tell people, take a piece of paper, list on there 40 to 50 things that you're grateful for, and repeat that list every day. It'll put you in a great mood. It sets up that Hashem will always answer your tefillos because more than anything, He loves grateful people. Going into Shidduchim. Shidduchim is a glorious and scary mix of effort and trust in God. But what is proper effort? This article will try to define Ishtadlut or Ishtadlus, otherwise known as putting in human effort. It boils down to 4 main things. Number 1, praying, tefillah. 2, going to shadchanim, matchmakers. Right? Investigating the shidduch and the actual dating. Praying is real hishtadlus. Imagine if hishtadlus could be compared to driving a car, then going to shadchanim, investigations and dating would be compared to the outside of the car. While your prayers are the engine that move the car. Your prayers are the engine. Without the engine, can the car move? Absolutely not. It means disciplining yourself when you're saying your Shemona Esrei every day. And then, before you take 3 steps back, talking directly to Hashem, you can also talk to Him in any language you want. For those of us who are listening to this or watching this show and this lecture and you don't read Hebrew, you can do any language you want. This is what you should tell Hashem. Dear Hashem, I know you have infinite love for me. And even if we speak Hebrew or English, but this is something you can communicate peh to God daily. Dear God, I know you have infinite love for me, and now I need your help for something very special. From the bottom of my heart, I want to build a true Jewish home for all the right reasons, and I'm asking you, who is my only true source of help, to please help me, God. Please grant me a free gift, matnat chinam, matnas chinam. I'm not asking for anything I deserve, because if we go in that route, they'll take out our books and examine them, and for sure we're negative in that department because they're always giving us upstairs much more than we deserve. So I'm asking you, my only source of help, to please help me. Please grant me a free gift and grant me mercy in your eyes. Right? You should say to yourself every day, thank you Hashem that I'm single. It's the best thing for me. I accept that it's the best thing for me. I ask you Hashem to grant me a soulmate as an act of mercy and not because you owe me anything. That's the way to get to Hashem. That's the way to get your davening answered. Please, Hashem, remove any obstacles from my path and give me the opportunity and clarity to find my true partner at the best possible time. By the way, okay. Now, going to a matchmaker or shadchan is like going to a dentist. They look right into you and drill you and subject you to torture. But in the end, they hopefully remove the pain. It is frustrating, but a crucial part of your effort. It's humiliating to share your insides with a stranger. You're not in the mood, you don't want to talk about it. But look at it this way. You wouldn't think twice about revealing personal stuff to a doctor or answering all kinds of weird questions for a job interview. And here is this sweet little lady or man who's trying to help you find someone who will be your partner for everything that's meaningful and beautiful in this world for the rest of your life and the world to come. Now, matchmakers come in all shapes and sizes. Some are professionals who annoyingly need constant reminders to keep you on their radar screens. Others who are dabblers. I see this all the time. There are those who spend a lot of time at it, and there are those, an hour here, an hour there, who feel the need to give you advice and box you into their worldview. Never let them intimidate you. Think of them like the sales lady who says, honey, you look perfect in the outfit. When you know you look hideous. She works for you but never owns you. Investigation. When you are offered a shidduch, don't say yes right away. Remember, the only heter to date boys or girls is for absolute tachlis. Right? This means we're obligated to check out everybody for compatibility in both personality and hashkafa. And I'll get to that. Actually, I'd like to do that now. This is very important. People ask me all the time, how do I know he's right for me? How do I know she's right for me? So, I'm going to give you 15 tips. Ready? Number 1. You've hopefully created a top 10 list, because you know that I'm a very big fan of that. A top 10 list lists out the 10 things you need in a partner that'll be most compatible for you. It's preferably done by a neutral party. I do this a lot for a lot of people. People come to me and I make the list for them. I listen to them, I hear them out, they tell me their dating history, I get it. And then we put a top 10 list together. The top 10 list now, that's your GPS. You're going to work with that top 10 list to the day that you get engaged. And the top 10 list has the things that you need in order to be happy. The kind of qualities of character. Not things like money or height or homes that he owns or she or what her father's worth. Right? Now, number 1. To determine if the person you're dating is the right person for you. Does this person match at least 5 out of the 10 of my top 10 list? 5 out of the 10. Physical attraction is an absolute requirement. You have to be physically attracted. Outside of that, 5 out of the 10. Now, are most of these top 5 needs met? 3. Do we have the same hashkafa? Do we have the same way of looking at the world? Hashkafa comes from the word mishkafayim, which means in Hebrew glasses. Do he and I look at the world in the same perspective? Now, if I want 2 children and he wants 7 and he's adamant about it, then I'm adamant. There's a definite discrepancy in hashkafa there. Understand? If I'm insisting on living in New York and he's adamant to doing 10 years in Yerushalayim, we have a hashkafa issue there. You understand? We have a disagreement. So we have to know that we're on the same page. Are we on the same page in our worldview? Do we have similar goals in life of where we want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Do we discuss it on the dates? Do we talk about it? Do we have similar values? That's where religion plays a role. Do I know what's important to her? And do I know what's important to him? If you can't answer that question, why are you dating them? You should know very well what's important to him and what's important to her. That's critical. And it should mean something to you. Do I know what's important about her family or his family? Her friends or his friends? His Torah learning? His career, her career? What are their needs in terms of when we get married? That I have to set up the house and make sure that the living room is right, the bedroom is right, and the kind of material requirements you'll have. 7. Do we share expectations in the way we'll raise a family? Will you raise the kids, or will the babysitter do it? Or, heaven forbid, the maid? No? Do we have similar attitudes in life? I like to travel, he likes to travel. I like certain recreations, so does she, etc. Do we complement each other intellectually? Can we talk to each other? Or is the educational level so vast that it doesn't make sense for us to be going out? He can't be a janitor and she's a doctor. It's not going to go. Understand? So the intellectual level should be compatible. Does this person seem to be emotionally healthy? That's critical, and that needs to be investigated. Unfortunately, we find too many times when one of the parties, all the light bulbs are not all fully plugged in, right? So we have to be careful. Check it out. How do you know? Make sure that when you date, you try different types of dates, different venues, so you can see that person from every vantage point. One could be painting, one is rollerblading, one is going out for a romantic dinner, one is playing board games, one is Dave and Buster's, whatever it may be. You have to constantly have different styles of dating in order to assess the person from different vantage points so you can make sure you've seen them in all different environments. Have I seen positive midos displayed? Has this person acted and behaved with derech eretz? Did they, when they got comfortable, start to use profane language? Or were they disrespectful? Were they not nice to your parents? Do I look forward to being with him or her? That's a biggie. That's a very important one. You should be very much looking forward to seeing them when on days that you don't see them. And you miss them. Do I find the person's appearance pleasing? Do I find him attractive? Do I find her attractive? Is he pleasant company? Is she pleasant company? And here's the last one. It's a fantastic one. Does he bring out the best in me? Does she bring out the best in me? Will I hit the bar with that person? Will they juice me to be a successful human being? Will they motivate me? Will they encourage me? Will they advocate for me? Will they be there for me? Will they nurture me? And if the answer to most of these questions is yes, then there might be certainly an engagement in the near future. If the answer to any of these questions is no, then you need to gather more information, or you need to see which areas you're willing to compromise on or change your opinions on. Now I want to go into the area of questions to talk about. Oh, no, I'm sorry, investigation. The more you investigate, the better. Ideally, before you date, you should have a good idea of what the boy and girl are all about. You don't want any surprises later on. You want to be on the same page in life goals. You don't want to be attracted to someone and then find out that they have different views from you on critical and crucial issues. You should not be making the phone calls. You don't want to call the boy's Rabbi and come across as an investigator for the KGB. And in marriage, it also means you know your husband is anchored and will listen to someone. That's very important. If the girl is checking out a guy, does he have a Rebbe? Very important. Does he have someone that mentors him? Does he have someone that has an impression on him? When there's a problem later on, who will you go to if you have a problem in the marriage? You need to ensure that there's someone that he looks up to. It also gives you an idea of what he or she stands for. If they have a mentor or someone that's a religious figure in their life that influences them. And if you're young, your mother, your high school teacher, or someone who's a friend of yours can make the phone calls to determine if the person has the proper midos and hashkafas you're looking for. The actual dating is probably not the most significant part of your effort. This is because no matter how long you date, you will never really know until you marry. People can fake good needles and suppress bad ones for extended periods of time if they're attracted. And they can be good actors. Once again, you want to pack the maximum amount of tznius and kedusha into dating without compromising the ability of the relationship to flourish into something serious. And anytime I see this happen, I've had this happen to me in the last 2 weeks, where people violated tznius and violated kedusha, and the relationships go on. I had someone sitting right in front of me tonight, this afternoon. This girl in mid-30s, from our area, dating for a year and 7 months. Unfortunately, violation of Negiah and Tznius and all that, and they think that it's a good idea because it'll bring us closer. It doesn't. If anything, it makes you farther away. You think you're getting closer as the female, because I've spoken about this in one of my previous discussions, because when you touch, it automatically gives the impression that you know the person better. He's not feeling that way at all. If anything, the more careful you are with Kedusha and Tznius, how far better it is, how much better the relationship is built. Now, I want to talk about some of the questions that are spoken about. What should I talk about on dates? Let's start from early on and then advance forward. Your family and educational background. So that's basic stuff. What are you doing with your life currently? What made you choose your career or course of study? What do you like about what you work out or go to school for? What do you dislike about it? Where do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years? I had a case like this it was amazing, where he asked the girl, they're about to get engaged. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Well, I'd like to move to Manhattan and get a nose job. And guess what? He broke off with her. That was her goal. And he saw that for the while that he was dating her, it was all superficial. I want to move to Manhattan and get a nose job. That's my goal for the next 5 years. What's your favorite hobby? Why do you do it? Show the person that you're well-rounded. Besides your intellectual interests, what do you do for fun? What's the most satisfying achievement of your life? Was it religious? Was it professional? Was it the way you were able to undergo or go through a very hard experience, and as a result of that nisayon you grew and you became better and changed you forever? Was it a major accomplishment at school? Give some thought to these questions so that when you come to dates, you're ready, you're prepared. Is there something have you ever dreamed of doing for a long time? Think about an interesting article you've read and your reaction to it. Share it with the other person, your dating partner, even if it's a controversial topic. What's the best vacation you ever took? Why was it so great? It's a good idea to mentally review the content of your conversations before you go out. And if you find yourself monopolizing the conversation, taking over the whole thing, stop yourself and ask questions so that the other person can talk about the same topic. You may comment on something, and the courteous thing is, so what do you do about this? Let's talk about vacation. So where did you go? Are you talking about school? So how do you find school, etc.? So lob it to the other side of the net, giving the other person an opportunity to talk. Don't be afraid to get off on tangent or to ask questions. Like, how does that make you feel? What is it like? What did it look like? I like questions like how and what. You know why? Because they're not one-word answers. And I like to see how a person answers a question. It's okay to get off track during the conversation because one of you makes a comment that reminds the other of a story or something you want to share. Let the conversation flow. You can come back to the original topic later. Let the thing just go on its own and go wherever it goes, from this highway to that highway. Don't stop the conversation. Let it flow. By the third date, you feel more comfortable with each other, and you find somewhat easier to talk to each other. You're opening up now. You're developing what's called affection. I feel comfortable with you. I could share. Remember, there's a test that you can determine if it's right. You have the P-A-I-R, the pair test. P, physical attraction. A is affection, acceptance, and admiration. I can accept the person for who he is, even though that he or she has faults. I admire them for having unique qualities that I've never seen before in another boy and girl. And affection. I feel an affinity to them. I feel a friendship. I can talk to them. I can trust that person. I come to them for their opinions. I ask them to solve my problems. I bake little cookies for him. I pick him up from the subway. That's affection. We're getting connected now. We're getting closer. We see the world from inside. I look forward to talking with them on the phone on days we don't date. So, you're feeling more comfortable by the third date. And it's easier to talk to each other. During the next stage of dating, certain questions and topics of conversation can even help you to learn more about them. Because every time you go out, you should try to learn something new or something different about your dating partner. And let's go through them. Here's some topics. Let's talk about them. What do you like to do for fun, and why is that enjoyable to you? What was it like growing up in your home? Talk about an experience that influenced you to make a change in your life or a decision, a big decision that you made. What are your feelings about Israel? Living in Israel versus living here. Here's a great one. What do you think is your greatest strength, your best midah? What's your worst? Let's see if a person can admit to their failings. That's good. I like that. What do you feel you really need to work on before you can achieve your full potential? How do you like being religious? Let's say it's a person now became observant. How do you like your new life? You used to wear pants, now you wear skirts only. How do you like that? You used to have to keep a kippah on, but now you keep a kippah on all day. How do you like the changes you've made in yourself? Right? You ate in non-kosher restaurants. Now you're being a good person, and you're only going to kosher restaurants. How do you like that? What's your taste in clothing, furniture, art, music? Get to know the person. What are the things that get you angry? And what are the things that depress you? What fascinates you? What excites you? And if you spent a year in Israel, surely talk about it. If you went to seminary, what was it like? What was your favorite subject? Did you make friends with the Moras? And if it was a boy, what was the yeshiva life like? What was apartment living like with other guys? Where did you go away when you had when you had Shabbos that are off? And if you're a Baal Tshuva, that someone became religious after not being religious, talk about the experience that led you to decide to finally becoming religious. What does Shabbat mean to you? And what will your Shabbos or Shabbat be like when you're married? What would you like your Shabbos and holidays to be like in the home that you someday share with a husband or wife? Talk about your friendships, your friends, the type of people you get along with and the type you don't get along with. How do you react when someone gets you upset or gets you angry? And what makes you angry? What gets you upset? Who gets under your skin? How do you react when you or someone and someone else have a disagreement? Do you explode? Do you withdraw? Or do you calm down a bit? It gives them an insight into what you're like in situations which are challenging. I'd like to know that, especially if it's a girl checking out a boy. One of the biggest areas that I worry about for a girl's ka'as. Does the guy have anger problems? Does he have tantrums? I surely want to know about that. Can you describe a dilemma that you faced? And how did you deal with it? You had the opportunity to cheat on the regents, and they gave you the answers to the questions. How did you deal with that? Someone broke in and stole the test, and they offered it to you. How did you deal with that? You had the opportunity to take money that wasn't yours. It was on the table. Did you leave it alone? How did you deal with that? Fascinating, by the way. I don't know if anybody saw this, but I got a video. There was a auction in the Queen's Courthouse for a house that had been foreclosed. And in order to buy a house, you're bidding on at a courthouse, you have to come with money on the spot. Right? So this is amazing. A Muslim guy from Queens forgot a bag of $85,000 in cash. I have the video. I've seen it on the yeshiva roll. It was found by a Bukharian Orthodox Jew. So listen to this. The guy went home. He called his friend, who also came to bid on the house. And he said, "Are you still there?" He says, "Yeah." There was a guy there with a Jewish skull cap, a kippah. Is he still there? They went. They found him. And he said, "Did you find the bag?" "Yeah. I don't know what's in it, but I saw a bag." He opens up and he sees the money, $85,000. The guy comes back to court and they're videoing this. They're counting all the money. You see, you got every dollar back. After they counted the full $85,000, he offered him 10 grand. He says, "No, I don't want a penny." He offered him 10,000. "I don't want a penny. But I want everyone to know I gave you everything back, right? You got it all. It's yours." That's a moral dilemma. How would you deal with that one? Huh? This man surely prepared for that day. God bless him. Okay. What's your attitude towards the concept of Hashem running your life and how miraculous things happen to you? Hashgacha pratis. And have you seen it in your life? And give me examples. Chesed. What role does chesed play in your life? When I help many people write dating resumes, one of the areas that I require is a paragraph that I created in my own way that I ask my students and clients, tell me about chesed that you've done. I want to show I want to portray you to the world as someone who's engaging in acts of kindness. Have you volunteered for any organization, any shul? Have you tutored a child who's a next door neighbor? Have you gone to nursing homes? Have you assisted individuals who have disabilities? Tell me about your chesed. After all, when Eliezer Eved Avraham went to look for a wife, he didn't go looking for money. His master was well to do. He made one test. Who is going to give me water to drink? He based his entire decision for the wife of the replacement of Avraham Avinu on one thing, chesed. That's it. I'm not interested in how philosophical she is, if she has PhD degrees, because she's going to have to be the one to convert the women. No, I don't care. I'm not interested. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me, the defining test will be who does chesed. So, discuss any chesed you've done, and if you're not involved, get involved in chesed. How would you like to raise your children? You could spend literally a whole date on that. One of the questions I ask people is, how did your parents raise you? And would you raise your children the same way? How would you do it differently? How do you believe, what is your belief in discipline? And how do you discipline a child? And what yeshiva system would you like to send your children to? You got to see if you are now merging into the same lane hashkafically. How do you deal with pressure? How do you deal with stress? How honest are you about your potential? And also, let's face it, what are your expectations about your standard of living you would like to have when you're married? How will you share household responsibilities? Will you be around for the children? Or show up at 10 o'clock every night? An important one, as girls vet boys. He needs to be around. He's a partner also in this enterprise. Two people thinking about marriage must discuss their own expectations about how they relate to each other after marriage. What do they think they would enjoy doing together after they're married? How do they think you can strike a balance between work and school and learning and their families, their friends, and their separate friends? Because you're always going to be tugged when you get married. To go here, to go there, cousins, neighbors, obligations, family, school, PTA. Just ask anyone. And your job is to maintain a very delicate balance. Who's going to make the decisions in the home? How will financial decisions be made, and how will money be handled? These are very important things. So tonight, we got a bit of an overview of what are the things we have to do in terms of effort for dating, and a lot of the questions that we need to think about that we would want to ask on dating conversations. If we can implement them, you should review them and come prepared. This way, when you go out on your dates, you're an effective dater. An effective dater can get to the finish line much easier. A person who just wings it and expects I'll just get lucky is just hankering for failure. You'd rather be prepared. And you'd rather do your due diligence. So if anyone needs any help with that, you can reach out to me. I'll be happy to help. I train people all the time in that. Just feel free to call me at 305-206-1916. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. Have a fantastic week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good? Yeah.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Very nice, thank you.
And keep coming. Keep going.
That's it. Night's finally over.
Yeah.
Kind of well, I got up first like we're based on every day. Where you start from 9:30 to 12:30. Yeah.
Okay.
Then from there I go right to work. My office is 15 blocks from there.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Okay.
And I work until around 8, 9 o'clock.
Who you with?
I have an office, my own office. I have one partner. His name is Yaakov Peretz. Israeli guy. He's double my age. Real estate acquisitions and development. So he told me the auction story. I kind of related to that. I probably even know who the guy is. Yeah. Those are stories you only hear, like, they make it to the, what's it called, that show, the food show. Dr. Phil?
Amazing.
Yeah, very amazing. Very cool story. And I was little situations all the time. They told me to hear this one.
Yeah, this is on the yeshiva. Wild stuff, right?
Yeah.
Amazing story.
Yeah. I avoid the auctions, but hearing stories like this, maybe I can come across something like that. It would be a good opportunity. Sometimes I tell myself, like, when I was younger, I didn't really care too much about being honest in business because I dealt with people like hoodlums, like pushing all kinds of things.
Yeah, because you're already with Daryl.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But I stopped that business once I became a religious at like around 16 years old. And ever since then, I'm asking myself every day, testing finance because I want to prove to you that I like to finish and that I take finance very, very seriously.
So you're doing David Melech stuff, huh? Fascinating. Good.
Not in every area, but in finance, it's like one thing I take time. Waiting for the right opportunity.
You're only going to gain from it.
Yeah, especially with finance. God's my partner, no one else, and his commission is 10%. That's literally what it is.
Baby, you're so well thought out. God bless you.
So we're talking about how it's all business. It's all business for her.
Girls enjoyed it?
She makes a lot of money off of it. That's why nothing good happens. No, but she doesn't.
Oh, we are. I didn't realize. I'm wearing the same black background.
No, it's probably true.
Oh, smart. I just can't stop thinking about it.
I don't like it.
I have a little tiny hole because I was in my house and I caught on a nail.
No, she's very good. She's very good. Just whatever. I don't
I
think it was for me.
5% and it's not over. I don't want to turn it on. Today, I was not
I'll tell you what, because they have a lot of fun.
I'm gonna walk.
It's
People
not-
think I'm crazy.
I'll tell you, because his thing is it's
It's
more of a
5%
chill.
for emergency.
What kind of
police.
people are
I'll- No, I'm
young,
saying,
old?
Both.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, technically,
Yeah, but
I'm
some got
NFS.
50, 60, she advertised 20,
And
20s, 30s, and 40s, and then
Yeah.
60s.
She got whoever wanted to come.
I like that a lot.
It's not
A
fair.
lot of times
You advertise 20s, 40 or 49, how come it's 60? It's not fair. Other people, they...
You see, I never saw 60. Maybe I did.
I know, but why do you, why, then I have
very
I'm
good.
paying him up.
I wish
Why
I
would
was
What
you-
about double class? Could you advertise something also?
No, I know, but no, but don't order yet just
Like,
because
let's
I
go
want to
where?
make sure I spoke to everybody I need to speak. But you
Should I
realize,
schedule 50 minutes?
In his
no, I'm
house?
saying it takes, I mean,
I
it
don't know
costs
if
a lot
it's
of,
in his
like,
house,
from here to
but
my
You're
house.
gonna walk from here to...
It's part of the...
Because I like walking, it's not.
He owns
It's
it.
not
I know,
really,
I know, I like
It's in
walking
his
to and
house.
walking home, but...
I remember he had one a few months ago for single also in his
It's
house.
cheaper, regular,
I've
Like,
never been
it'd be
there.
like $9 from here.
oh, he's
nice.
very
Ten.
good, yeah. Jeremy Kotsko,
You
you
no,
have
you
to
should
go.
do
Yeah?
pool and
It's
do
very
pool.
nice.
Doesn't matter,
He
whatever
has
you want,
like,
I don't care.
he used to have a lot of
Okay.
It's not
people
the
in his
Lux,
house,
you
a
know,
lot.
the Excel.
Then after he
What?
got sick, after he had surgery, let's go.
I think
Oh,
so.
yeah.
For your sake,
Now
cool,
he
because
has
it doesn't
like
make a
50
difference to
guests
me.
as opposed
I mean,
to
I won't know it, but
as
I was
opposed
getting
to
it through the
200.
phone.
Yeah.
He
I
used
used
to
to
have
have people
200
coming in.
guests.
In
I'm
his
not
house,
joking,
This
yeah.
couple station.
it's like what, a 5 story?
No, I'll tell you what, when you come in,